Hello, my name is Jasminda, and this is my ecology research project, Communities and Biodiversity. So I'm going to start off with my introduction, which is basically why this area, a study area, interested me, and the species between my research. So I chose birds, particularly seabirds, for this project. I would eventually like to study marine ornithology. I'm very involved with bird conservation and how humans and birds are intertwined. I also live right by the Hudson River, which is has a beautiful and diverse ecosystem. So that's why I chose this area and the species. So my research question is, are seabirds more abundant by the Stony Point seawall on the Hudson River as opposed to the Cedar Pond Brook tributary because of more availability of food sources? My hypothesis is there are more seabirds by the Stony Point seawall, Hudson River, due to more availability of food sources. So now I'm going to talk about my study areas. I'm just going to describe both areas. Study area 1 and study area 2. Excuse me, a little under the weather. Study area 1, it's called the Stony Point seawall. It's not actually the sea, it's by the river, but we call it the seawall still. And it's in Stony Point, New York, in the Hudson Valley. So it's called Haverstraw Bay. And it's a very significant fish and wildlife area in the Hudson River, due to a combination of different features, physical and biological. Has a lot of biological richness, including plants, phytoplankton, aquatic invertebrates, and many fish species. And due to this beautiful waterfront area, there are always people there taking part in recreational activities, fishing, there's a park, just walking around the area. So there's always a lot of people there. So this is my first study area. Just a picture of one of I believe this is a juvenile herring gull. In study area 2, it's actually not that far from the seawall. And this is called Grassy Point Marsh, Cedar Pond Brook, and this is also in Stony Point. So these are wetlands that are in this area. And Cedar Pond Brook combines fresh water and salt water from the Hudson River, and it is an estuary ecosystem. This actual marsh here has very rare wildlife, and it's a beautiful habitat. It has a variety of rare and well-known plant and animal species that use it as their nesting and feeding area. This area is called the kayak launch because there is a small little boating launch area where people are allowed to launch kayaks and small canoes, and then they can go along the wetlands here. So now I'm basically going to talk about the species that are present that I'm focusing on in this presentation. So mainly seabirds, birds that are by the coast, by the river. This is the ring-billed gull, and it's one of North America's most prevalent gulls. And they definitely have adapted to human civilization, and they have an omnivorous diet. Varies depending on where they are, the season. They include insects, fish, earthworms, and scraps from humans, and also garbage. Next bird is the fish crow. And the fish crow is similar to the American crow, although it is smaller. And it sounds a little more nasally, and it favors areas near water. So their diet is also omnivorous. They consume carrion, shrimp, crabs, insects, berries, nuts, seeds, trash as well. And then the last one that we're looking at is called the osprey. It's a fish hawk and a beautiful bird of prey raptor. And it lives always by rivers, lakes, coasts, and their diet is mainly 99% fish. So now I'm going to go into the methods I use to discover the differences, the biodiversity differences in my two study areas. I use point counts for this, and I mainly focused on an article from the University of Florida, how they recommended to do point counts. So they basically say standing on one spot and counting birds is a point count. Each individual bird is counted once within a circle and within a predetermined radius. Point count is recommended to be an area of 20 meters and for a max of 10 minutes. So I used my binoculars. I also used an app called Merlin through Cornell for sound IDs. So with my sampling plan, I conducted 6 point counts in a total of 3 days. I used a journal and pen to write down my observations. Excuse me. For visual confirmation, I used binoculars. And for audio confirmation, I used the Merlin Bird app on my smartphone. And again, I chose the 2 study areas for my point counts and had a predetermined 20-meter radius of each area to survey beforehand. They were approximately half a mile away from each other and had similar species. I surveyed Site 1 and Site 2 once a day for 3 days. And the point count survey template I used was as follows. Oops, sorry, it's the wrong slide, but this is basically a diagram for a point count. So basically standing right here, and this is the radius of 20 meters, and for 10 minutes doing the count. So this is the template that I used. I put the site, I put the date, the time, which was 10 minutes each, and then I track the species and the count of each species. So this is the Merlin app. It's a great app through Cornell. So you can do a photo ID or you could do a sound ID. And then these are my sites. I did this with Calc Maps, and this is the Site 1 seawall. And as you can see here, this is the radius that I chose. This area here is where people park. This is the coast and a little beach right here. So a lot of people tend to congregate here, and there are always a lot of birds here in this area. And then the next site is the kayak launch, Site 2. And I chose this area, and as you can see here, this is the kayak launch. These are the start of the wetlands, and there are a lot of birds here as well. A lot of times there's a lot of trash, garbage here. People throw their leftovers, stuff like that. So now I'm going to, this is my discussion and my results. So regarding point counts, for each point count, each plot, I computed the species richness, the Shannon index, and evenness. And I counted 26 birds at Site 1 and 31 birds at Site 2 for a total of 57 birds. So I basically saw that Site 2 had the greater mean overall, and Site 1 had greater variability. according to the numbers. So this is a little graph I made for my species richness. And species richness is the total number of different species in area, and it's S. And as you can see here, the seawall was 6, the kayak launch was 14. Here's the seawall, here's the kayak launch. You could clearly see the difference right here. More species in this area of the kayak launch. And this is the Shannon Index. And Shannon Index is H, and it assesses both species richness and evenness simultaneously. And this was the number I got for the seawall, and number I got for the kayak launch. And here is a chart as well, visually demonstrate. And then for evenness, evenness is the relative numbers of individuals per species. And here are the numbers for the seawall and kayak launch as well. So overall, for my discussion, I found that species richness, Shannon Index, and evenness values were all on the higher end in Site 2. There seems to be more biodiversity according to the data set in Site 2. Even though both sites are very close to each other, they are different environments. Excuse me. Site 1 by the seawall is right off the Hudson River, as I had discussed earlier. It has heavy motor vehicle traffic and human presence, and there are a lot of homes there actually as well. Has a lot of boat traffic also on the river. Site 2, the kayak launch, has minimal traffic and less human presence. It also is a wetland ecosystem, whereas the seawall is like a shoreline ecosystem. So regarding species richness, gull-type birds seem to congregate more by the shoreline, and passerine and corvid birds seem to congregate by the wetlands. The abundance of seabirds and corvids by the shore might be attributed to the amount of human activity in the area. And people not only feed the birds, but there is often quite a lot of garbage that gets left there daily for the birds to feed on as well. The passerine and sea eagles, like osprey and bald eagle, might be in the wetland area due to the availability of fish, the higher availability of fish. Excuse me, I apologize again. And the lower amount of human activity. And definitely rare species, invasive species, might impact the availability of food sources in this area. I did not find any invasive species in both areas. And so lastly, because of human contact, animals may benefit greatly from the availability of food and water, as well as protection from predators and parasites. Protection from predators such as bald eagles, domestic cats and dogs. And the humans, we provide food sources as well. The birds are fed by humans, and they also eat the scraps left by humans, and they eat the food that is in the trash. So thank you for listening, and I apologize for all the coughing, and these are my citations. Thank you.